Hi guys, welcome to the show. It's so good to have you both on.
Hello.
Hello, thanks for having us.
Thank you for making it work virtually.
Yeah. So for those listening, I have both Steph and Josh on the podcast with us today. A lot of you would know Steph. If you don't, you've probably been living under a rock. But she's the co-host of KickPod and KickBump, the co-founder of the Kick app, offering thousands of workouts, meditations, recipes, and programs. And so I've got you both here today, which I'm absolutely ecstatic about. I know how difficult it is when you've got a little one to juggle and work and things like that. So we're trying to smash this out before Harvey wakes up from his nap. So really appreciate you guys taking the time.
Thank you. He's only just gone down, so we should be sweet.
We should
Should be right. So basically, Josh, more for your benefit actually, because I did mention this to Steph last time when I was on her podcast recently. So we are the Parenthood Pod, and basically I speak a lot to both mums and dads about how their lives have basically changed since becoming parents, and we really look to smash the stigma that of challenges that parents face, because although it is such a beautiful, sweet ride, and we love our little ones so much, there are obviously a lot of life changes that come with that. And I think the more we talk about those challenges and normalize them, the more we feel less alone in those struggles. So that's kind of the premise of the podcast. So what I thought I'd do with you guys today is bring up a few hot topics that our audience have often bring to us and get your take on it based on your experience as parents. So let's kick it off. So the first topic I often have, particularly when couples come on, there's often this thing around, the birth mum, she's just given birth, your whole life is spun upside down. It's the most beautiful experience, but also quite challenging as well. And there can sometimes be this feeling of resentment. It's irrational, I guess, resentment in a way, of that feeling when your partner is able to escape and, I don't know, go to work or do other things, and you're so tied to this little one and you can barely get to the bathroom alone, right? Like, it's a really big pressure. So I was just curious from both of your sides of things, and particularly yourself, Josh, being the primary carer as well. Do you ever have mixed feelings about being the one at home, and Steph, even from your point of view, being the one going to work?
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning, we'll probably start there. Harvey's 2 now, but in the early stages, he was born during lockdown in COVID. So we were kind of both stuck at home, like couldn't go anywhere or do anything. So I think I was speaking to someone the other day. I'm actually so grateful for the timing of when we had Harvey and the fact that we were in lockdown, because it meant that we both got to spend so much quality time with him, and also with little distractions from like multiple visitors just dropping by and everything like that. And I had a lot of friends whose partners would have traditionally gone back to work and missed a lot of that time fairly quickly. Obviously, Josh and I, a bit of a different situation, as we'd recently left a company which was his full-time job. So he, regardless of whether we were in lockdown, was going to be around to help share the load. But I do think it was a really nice way to kind of start the journey together, because it meant that we both kind of had the same. Obviously, I was breastfeeding. Well, not obviously, I was breastfeeding. I was lucky enough to. And so I think other than that, we really shared the rest of the load, like changing diapers, like washing his clothes, doing all that sort of stuff. That was all very much equally shared from the beginning. So bit different, I suppose, to some other people's stories. But how do you find it now?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, going back to the point of, I wouldn't say like resentment, but when Steph leaves for the morning, there's definitely times when...
Like for work?
Yeah, when Steph leaves and we both wave goodbye at the driveway, and there's definitely days where I'm like, oh man, I wish I was pulling out the driveway to go to work with colleagues or whatever I've been doing. I mean, my line of work was very different back when I was doing as much heavily based around like entertainment and parties and whatnot. So it was very out there and kind of like an extroverted lifestyle I was living in. But so it's not resentful, but there's definitely days where I was like, I'd love if we could just swap today.
Yeah, and there's definitely days that I'm driving away and
Totally.
I'm seeing them waving at me, knowing that like they're about to just go to the park or something, and I'm like, oh God, I wish I could stay home.
Yeah.
So I think it's always the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm interested because obviously, Josh, you're in such an extroverted role, I guess, previously. How did you go with the adjustment of sort of being home, and how do you sort of, I guess, get that, tick the box on the social front as well?
I mean, at the start, it was very challenging because it was so polar opposite from being like, you know, traveling and parties and events and so many people in my life every single day, to me and a newborn baby who couldn't speak to me. So there was days and days where you're at home, and particularly when Steph first back to work, and I was like, all right, now I'm just on my own all day, and he was still like a little baby.
It wasn't walking or anything.
Yeah, it wasn't walking, so it was still like just so quiet in the house, and but I mean, there's a massive difference between then and now. Now that he's 2 and he can go out and do lots of things now, and it's only 1 nap a day instead of 2, so my like life has changed a lot in the last even 6 months with him. It's a lot more enjoyable, rewarding, because, you know, I get a lot back from him now, where obviously at the start you don't get much back besides pooey nappies.
I think it's also different because you've spoken a lot over the last 2 years about like your feeling of being lonely, I think, because I think if I was in your situation, there's a couple of girlfriends of mine who I would be able to catch up with, go to the park, go get a coffee, because they've also got little ones and they would be at home. Whereas for you don't really have a dad community. I mean, there's a few friends that are starting to have kids, so you've got them, but also a lot of them work and they're not the primary parents.
And also too, they don't live, the ones that I do have who have kids, don't live that close by. So it was always hard to navigate with the 2 naps a day anyway, because by the time you drive 30 minutes and then grab a lunch, you're already like, I gotta go, and it's almost like, why am I even here? That's, I guess, my point before. It's a lot different now. I can do a lot more and venture out and see people who are available in a work day.
Because I was gonna say, like, any hot tips for for stay-at-home parents who are sort of feeling lonely, a little out of their depth, or missing that prior life, like, what would you say to them?
What about the gym?
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing that, you know, helped me along the way. I joined up with a gym, so I try to go in the mornings when I can.
You probably go 3 to 5 days a week.
Yeah, so I get out of the house at 5:45, and that's me, you know, me time with adults, talking crap and doing something to then come home.
You go to the gym with a lot of your friends too.
Yeah, a lot of school friends and whatnot. But other than that, I spend a lot of time on FaceTime with, like, I mean, my brother works on his own in office, so he sometimes just sits on FaceTime with Harvey and my mum or whatever, aunties and uncles. So that's always good, just to knock out half an hour and catch up with people. And it's also good, Harvey's always familiar with everyone who's not, you know, particularly living in our state or whatnot. So
And I think it's interesting because I think going into parenthood, I'd had only a few friends who had gone through it, but what I had learnt from them was that balance between 2 roles, when one person is going back to work and the other one isn't, and how they manage it and their struggles. And unfortunately, and I know this is really common, but the person who was often going back to work would also be the person that, like, got to go to the gym, or would say, hey, I'm going to be home late tonight because I'm going to go for dinner or something, and would make these plans without kind of scheduling them in or talking about it. And I think because we went into this, you know, very much equal, this has got to work for the both of us, I know that I get that kind of adult time throughout the day, and I can be social at work. And so I try and make sure that, for example, the mornings for him to go to the gym, we've got a very early riser with Harvey. It might mean that there's a lot of mornings I don't necessarily get to get my workout in. However, I get my time with Harvey, and if I can juggle the 2, awesome. But my priority is making sure that Josh does get that time, because then I know for the rest of the day he's, you know, one responsibility is Harvey, and then on the weekends we try and really balance it out with, like, if you want to catch up with your friends or if I'm catching up with mine, it's all open conversations. And I think that's I'm pretty proud that we've been like that, because it kind of allows us both to know that we can make plans with friends, but it's just got to be spoken about. Can't just assume that you can, you know, put that on someone else.
Yeah, it sets you up for the day though as well, don't you reckon? Like, getting that workout out, you know, you, Josh, would probably be like, okay, I'm like, you know, I'm feeling fresh, ready to go. And then, you know, kick on. Okay, so curious. I mean, do you have plans, just curious, like, do you have like a timeline? Like, I want to be around until Harvey starts primary school and then I'll look to do the new thing, or like, have you even really thought about that?
Yeah, basically. Not in too much depth. I guess I'll be available as long as I need to be. at the minute, and I'm lucky to be able to be available for
Yeah,
that.
very fortunate. We're in a position where I can kind of balance the load with just my income.
And then outside of that, I'm sure once Harvey's in school, then I'll move back into something that I used to do, or who knows actually.
But there's something that you're working on now, which is kind of unknown how much it's going to pick up. You
Correct.
know, how regularly you'll need to be available for that. It could end up being a full-time job.
Yeah.
At the moment, it's something that he can very much balance with still being at home with Harvey. So
Yeah, for sure.
we'll just navigate that. But that's been another conversation I've always said to Josh, because he's always been someone that needs to be doing something. So as soon as you get that itch, or if you're unhappy, like, we can sort something out. We can send him to daycare. We can, let's talk about it. So he knows that it's there.
I'm lucky enough to have things going on. Not your standard 9 to 5 work, but I do have things that I've been working on and work
that come
on, also weekly. So there's been enough to keep
my
mind ticking outside of just going mad.
Yeah. I can relate to that. I started a podcast when my second was 6 weeks old, because I was like, I need to do something like something that's mentally stimulating as well, right? Like it's, for some people it's more important than for others. I'm curious as well, because I actually would be interested in whether you guys have ever discussed what your love languages are. And if, for example, quality time was one of them. I mean, it's a lot harder now. I mean, look at, we've got work, we've got baby, we've got all the things. So I was just curious, do you know what your love languages are, and how do you navigate those with parenthood?
Yeah. Quality time was definitely on both of our lists. It was my top one. And for me, that's just like, that's time aside where we're generally spending quality time together. And sometimes if I'm having a busy week or a bit stressed, it can be the thing that unfortunately gets deprioritized, which we spoke about a little bit on Kick Bump.
But also, your quality time is also like us, but it's also important that you get me quality time yourself.
Oh yeah, me time. my love language is by my time, be by myself. But it's true. But it's that's almost like acts of service as well, because that's also something that's for both of us. But like for me, if Josh somehow makes an effort to give me my time, like to get a workout in, or like, I don't know, set the bath up, I'm like, that's a love language. And for Josh, it's that. And it's also like, definitely acts of service is one of Josh's, but also physical touch is like quite a big one for you. You're very affectionate.
Yes.
And unfortunately, it's something that I need to consciously make effort to do. And it's weird to say, because like, he's my soulmate, and I've honestly loved him since I was like 13 years old. So I just think we're a little bit different in that.
Yeah, we bonded over this, Josh, when we were talking. Steph and I were talking last on the podcast around that, because similarly, my husband Jules is like, loves the affection and all of that, and I think that's why I was drawn to him, because like I do love affection, but I probably didn't come as easily or as naturally. And so therefore I was like, I love that quality in you. And it's interesting, like when you become parents, and particularly as the birth mother, and if you are breastfeeding, and even actually if you're not, there's so much touch from the baby, right? And particularly if you're breastfeeding, they're like sort of all over you a lot. And, and so you can often feel maxed out by touch. And so it is a little bit trickier to navigate if your partner's love language is that affection piece. You kind of have to be super aware of it, because it won't be as natural as pre-kids. I don't like, what is your experience with that from both of your viewpoints?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's definitely different. And I think it's funny, because prior to having Harvey, I used to hear of like parents kind of scheduling in their like time, and I know when we're talking about physical touch or affection, it's not always sex, but like often you'd have to like actually schedule in sex for like Saturday afternoon or whatever when the kid's napping. And I used to laugh at that, thinking like, oh my God, I couldn't do that. Like, where's the spontaneity? Or, but now it's like, that's actually the best time to do it, because, and it's also like, for us, we've noticed that when we haven't had, kind of regular intimacy, we're on edge, we get frustrated with each other really easily. And when we've kind of made effort to do things like that, it does really change the mood. And we actually ended up, because we went through a bit of a dry spell and didn't really know how to get started again, we decided to do a 30-day intimacy challenge. And that was, I think Harvey was 1 at that point. It was probably like 1.5 or 1-ish. And we did it. And at the start, I was very like apprehensive. I was like, I don't know about this. I've got too much on it with work. I'm like barely fitting in workouts. How am I going to do this as well? And, but we did it. And like, there was definitely points where it was like challenging because it's,
I think my biggest takeaway from that was, I think because you've always got that in your mind that we need to get this done today.
Like a task.
I think just naturally we treated each other a lot better. Like there's a lot less bickering, there's a lot less anything, because it's like, if you know that that's like on our to-do list for today, then you don't engage in things that's going to make that harder. So I think overall it was really good in that aspect. I think it like, I don't know, a lot less picky about little things that, it's like a lot less bickery, because it's like, I don't know.
I do agree. And I think that what it did as well was after the challenge, because like everyone was asking us afterwards, like, oh, so are you still having sex every day? Absolutely not. It's pretty much gone back to once a week. But for us, it was more like it reignited that spark. It reminded us of how important it is. We probably were more affectionate with each other, in the week. Even if it wasn't sex, it was like we were just hugging and kissing more. And because I think it was almost like we got this opportunity where we could like kiss again and it not have to like lead to much more, because that was kind of the challenge.
It's a really good thing to like entertain after having a kid.
It was great for us, but it has to be, the right time. I have a lot of girlfriends who, got that 6-week clearance from the doctor, but then they didn't mentally feel ready. And like, it's going to take time. And I think for us, it definitely needed to be after that, like first year, to do a challenge like that.
It's such a hot topic, isn't it? Because everyone's got their journey around how they kind of reconnected after all of that. And just like listening to you both, I mean, I didn't do the challenge, but I very much it was very high on my sort of level of priority, because I was kind of like, I feel like the longer we go without even affection, full stop, I feel the harder it will be to get back into it. It's almost like it becomes a bit jarring because you haven't, been affectionate for a period of time. So, I mean, I always recommend, even, for those of you who aren't ready to have sex necessarily, it's, it might be the kiss as we say hello, the kiss as we say goodbye, or the hand on the back, or the, the hug, or just something, instances where you can show that you're not just roommates, you are actually a couple. Think about what you can do. That's these little actions that can sometimes lead up to something more. I'm curious as well, because everyone is so time poor as parents. Are you able to get away for, a date night or a walk alone or whatever that could look like? How do you prioritize that in your busy schedules?
Yeah, we are so fortunate with the help. I think it really helps that we're the first in our family to have a child, and Josh also has 3 siblings. So we have lots of people we can call on, and they're all so obsessed with hubby, and as I said, don't have children of their own. So and I've got a brother as well. So it's the load is definitely shared, and they're always offering to babysit. So we've got them. My mum also comes over. I want to say every Thursday night. It's probably 80% of the time Thursday nights, and then she'll stay for either half the day Friday or the full day Friday sometimes as well. And so that gives Josh some time. Like he always makes Friday kind of his like running errands or getting work done, or playing golf if you've planned that with your friends.
If I can,
and gives Harvey that time with his nana as well. But we are extremely fortunate to have hands to help. So mum often reminds us as well, like she'll message me Wednesday of the week and be like, remember, I'm coming over tomorrow if you and Josh wanted to go for dinner or something. Like
nice.
do that. So sometimes it takes other people reminding us, but it is something we try and be cautious of.
We could probably be better.
We could probably be better. We're probably running on about 1 date night a month at the moment, but we also get like we've got the same friendship groups and stuff like that.
So we've had a lot of weddings, a lot of things where we haven't had Harvey for potentially 2 nights at some stages. So it hasn't been, it's been
Yeah.
pretty good lately.
We're
I mean,
very
even on the
lucky.
weekend we had a 30th and we both went out and my brother had him. So we,
It was so nice because his brother stayed the night and also took the morning shift.
yeah,
So we were both in bed till 9:45.
that's the ultimate gift from anyone. Take the Sunday
I
morning.
can't even. 9:45. I don't remember the last time I was in bed till 9:45.
Oh, you would have felt like absolute, like you royalty.
We were really hungover.
We were very hungover.
But we got up and it felt so good just knowing that I was just taking care of it. He had
Yes.
breakfast and he'd been playing and it was good.
Great.
Oh, so good. Curious, I mean, what advice would both of you give for, I actually want to start with you first, Josh. So you said, we started off saying you're quite an affectionate person generally. Let's say, you know, someone's in your shoes where their partner perhaps is less affectionate, is paying them a bit of less attention because of the baby, doesn't have the opportunity to do the date nights as frequently as you would like, etc. I mean, I'm thinking about some of the dads listening even, because of often a lot of dads that come on, I mean, I've had a dad say, look, I thought she just didn't love me anymore. Like during our hard spot, I literally thought, we've had this baby, I'm not sure how long our relationship's going to last. Like, and that was a really raw conversation that we had, and his wife was there, and interesting to get both of their takes. But I mean, this is the reality, right? And particularly if we don't have the support and the village supporting us. So to those people who might be in that shoes, I'm sort of putting you on the spot a bit, Josh, but little things that you think might be helpful. Does anything come to mind?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely stages where like I might feel that, and predominantly those times come when Steph's stressed. So I try to do little things, and lots of them, that I know she likes, whether that's like she said, run the bath, or Harvey and I pick her flowers, or we draw a picture, or little things like that I know are so simple and not hard to do, but I know that she likes and appreciates. And I think that in turn you naturally get back, I guess, what you're aiming to get, because she's, you know, in a better mood or happier, or you just take, I don't know. It's always in our relationship, it comes from, those times come from when she's stressed and busy. So if you can eliminate stress in any way, then, or you know, frazzle, then when she's relaxed and whatever, then everything else kind of follows suit. So
yeah, and for me, it's kind of, I mean, on the same light, I am trying to be more conscious of not using Josh as my stress ball either. It's so hard because he's my number one support, and he's always there, and he always knows what to say and stuff. But sometimes that's something I need to consciously do, is try and work through things in ways that I'm not just going to let it all out on him. And I think for me, I mean, we have had some of those instances where I was, you know, very almost like not here for him, and he was like, what's going on? And I think it is definitely something that you need to consciously talk about and think about, because for me, it is a very different love. Like, the love that I feel for Harvey is different to the love I feel for Josh, but it has shifted the way I feel for Josh, because it's almost like I love him more in ways, because he's always been my favorite kind of person, but seeing him as a dad is like the most magical thing, and it's just made me like fall in love with him in a whole different light. But then that might be like overcrowding the lust love, like the sparky kind of love that maybe we had prior. And it's like, you got to remind yourself of different things that you felt for this person and be conscious of it. Because that's the last thing that I ever want, is to hear that he feels that, you know, I might be losing that or something like that. It's just that I've got more love now to give, because I'm now sharing it with another human as well.
There's 2 guys in the house.
There's 2 men in my life.
It's funny, Steph comes home from work sometimes, like, oh, yeah, and kisses him on the lips, and just gets about it. I'm like, hey, I'm also here.
Love you.
Yeah, can I have a kiss too?
That's the reality, right? And things will ebb and flow in your relationship. And I don't know, when you guys think of a tough spot that you may have been in, you know, throughout the years of being together, you know, what do you think helped? You know, they always say communication is best, and communicate when you're feeling not frazzled, and, you know, you're feeling like you're even tempered and you can actually have a productive conversation. But, you know, has there been times that you look back on and go, wow, like that really worked, we handled that well, that might support others?
Yeah, I mean, what you just said about communicating and then also making sure it's like the right time to communicate is something that we've both learnt.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We are good communicators. I mean, that saying, you know, don't go to bed angry. As much as we have arguments at night, I want to say like always, it's sorted out before we go to sleep.
Even if it means that we both roll over and we're facing opposite directions for a good 15 minutes, one of us will give in and be like, nah, we're not going to sleep. Let's talk about it. So
it's cliche, but it's communication and open and honest conversations always win.
Yeah, and I think
if
just
you
sometimes
don't, then it just causes more.
It's true. If you hold on to things and there's things that you wanted to say but you don't get them across, you'll just stew on them and resent the person for not just like understanding that without you having to voice it. Like,
also too,
I think why can't you read my mind?
Yeah.
Yes.
In our past, I think if there's anything that's more than just a bickering conversation that needs to be addressed, we often like write to each other a lengthy message where you can actually get out exactly what you're trying, because when you're trying to have a conversation then you get defense back or whatever, you end up off topic and just being a bit like spontaneous and, you know, ranty, where if you actually take the time to write out, this is exactly how I'm feeling, then you can absorb it and then respond, whether it's that night or whatever. So,
and I think we're getting better at swallowing our egos, because I think that's the one thing is like when we're in a fiery argument about something, it's like I so think I'm right and he so thinks he's right. So it's like, no matter what he says, I'm like, you're not hearing me. And then whatever I say, he's like, you're not hearing me. So I think that's where sometimes we take a breath, we literally separate. And sometimes I'll start by writing like a really long message. And sometimes he's so fiery that he's like, don't write me a message. I'm like, that's coming. You know it's coming.
You just see the typing thing.
See the dots,
like, don't write me a message.
But it's nice to hear you admit that sometimes it is best, because it is our way of like actually giving each other the time to get it all out on the table, and then we reconvene and we talk about it. We talk it through in person, but at least we've had our say. And it's like it's practice though. It's practice
and pride, because most arguments are because people are stubborn.
Yeah.
So if you just swallow that, then again you're better off.
Oh, 100%. I love that idea of the letter writing. I would often write my thoughts down in like a journal or something, again, to shift through the crap and actually get to the crux of what the issue is and get more in solution mode, as you said, versus that pride, ego mode that just doesn't help anyone. Yeah. I'm curious as well, because I mean, obviously both of you had big jobs and, you know, Steph, you're very demanding career currently and things like that. How do you try, I mean, it'd be so hard, as you were saying earlier, not to bring the stress home and to snap out of work mode and get into family mode and things like that. Like, you know, that would resonate with a lot of people. Are there things that you sort of do to help shift your, you know, or are you just really mindful if you are talking too much about work? Or like, I don't know. I'm just curious as to how you navigate that.
Yeah, it's hard because I think one thing that I try and do to navigate that is to not talk too much about work when I'm home. But then unfortunately what happens with that is then I forget that I haven't spoken to Josh about things. And like some big exciting things will be happening at work. And like we might be hanging out with Laura and Dalton, so Laura, my business partner, and she might be like, oh, Josh, have you heard about this? And Josh is like, no, I don't know. And then I'm like, oh shit, I haven't like shared enough. Because it is like I want to share the exciting things, even the downtimes. Like he's my person. Like he helps me through that stuff, and I think because I've been so cautious of trying to be able to switch off in some ways, I've taken that too far sometimes, and then like not really like brought him along the journey on things. So that's also something I'm navigating. But other than that, I think the only way for what I do in particular, obviously outside of the day-to-day with Kik, with, you know, running the business with Laws and then having a team to manage, like a lot of social media and content and stuff, that's a big part of my job as well, and sharing my life. So it's really hard to find that, I suppose, line or time that I can switch off, and the only way that I can do it is by putting my phone away. Like if I'm actually honest and like got 100% switch off, I need to put my phone away, and that can be really hard because we have an app that I want to make sure that everyone can access at any hour. And so for me, it's like really important that if a message comes through from someone at 9:00 in our Slack channel and our work Slack channel, and the devs are jumping on it and they're like, oh my gosh, there might be a bug, like that's important to me to be aware of and to be able to action something. Or so It's hard. It's hard to find it when you run your own business, but we make it work, and we just make sure that those times where I can switch off and put my phone away, like I've thought ahead and I've planned the time so that when I do that, I don't feel anxious that I'm missing something. Or, the other night we did that and we played 3.5 hours of Monopoly.
Oh, I love that. That's so old school.
Yeah, like, we were like,
it was wine and Monopoly for 3
yeah,
hours.
we were like,
I love
Let's play a board game.
Yes.
We've popped Netflix, so
let's turn
let's
the
go
TV
back.
off. We didn't even have music on,
No.
and we both put our phones away and played 3.5 hours of Monopoly. Like,
I
it was so
love
nice.
that. Yes. And what about you, Josh? Like, do you find that there are instances where you're kind of like, oh, that's a lot of work chat. How do I turn this around to be a bit more relaxing family time? Like, any sort of guidance you could give there?
Yeah, it is I find it hard sometimes to deal with it because I mean obviously I'm like I've discussed alone most of the day, and when Steph's home I'm like, all right, now just give me talk to me, but not about work, but sometimes about work, and then I'm like, it's a really fine balance because I obviously appreciate exactly what she's got going on, and she can't just be, I don't care about that, I'm just going to be over here, and it just doesn't work like that. So I get that, but I mean, I'm only a human too, so naturally you crave attention and whatnot. So it's just, again, pick your battles. And I mean, we try to have our, try to have like nice weekends where we go up to the river and whatnot, and that's our real like quality family time. So I guess it's just, work weeks
Scheduling
or work weeks and...
Yeah, and I need to be better at like choosing what I am sharing when I come home from work, because I think sometimes I come home and I don't want to talk about work anymore. Like I'm through it. And so he might ask how my day is, and it reminds me of when I came home from school and my mum would be like, how's your day? And I'd be like, good. And she's like, what'd you get up to? What'd you do? Talk to me. And like, now I feel bad because I'm like, oh my God, now I'm doing that to Josh sometimes. But yeah, it's also like about not wanting to, I suppose, just bring up stresses or anything like that.
And that's, again, a responsibility I need to take on board, because you can pick her mood very easily. So if it's at all stressful, then we go back to what I said before, and you do something else to lower that down, because then you get the affection or the quality time.
Yes.
So it's just about being a mastermind on how to control or understand Steph's head.
Start picking those flowers so that you can,
I'm like, it's night time, I'm down the street getting flowers. With a torch.
Yeah. So I'm curious as well. I mean, obviously you guys are a high profile couple, right? So how do you juggle how much of your lives you share with the public versus what you'd like to keep private?
Yeah, it's definitely something that we constantly have to talk about. I think also because of the podcast that Laura and I have, which we're both very open and honest on. And we love to be that way, and we've kind of always been that way even through social media, but a podcast is just another level, right? And so that's something that we constantly have to have conversations about. Like, for example, when we did the intimacy challenge, I asked Josh if he'd be happy if I spoke about it, and he was like, can we at least get halfway before you do? Like, let's just at least see how we're going and how I feel, and then ask me. And that's kind of what we did. So sometimes it's like that, but we're very different in that way. I think I am a lot more open and comfortable to be that way. You're a bit more private.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, obviously my previous role, I was very, like, a lot like Steph, heavily on social media every single day. It was important to share my life and just share everything I was doing and where I was going, all that type of stuff.
But it was more of like a character. It wasn't like you didn't like show you much of your downs or anything like that. Like, it was still...
Yeah, I guess I'm not so much. I mean, I still work on social media, so it's still important that I
have a profile,
show some face as far as showing up for it. But it's interesting. I don't. It's changed me a lot. I don't actually think to do it now like I used to, which I think is really nice. I definitely spend probably too much time on it still, but that's just standard addiction on social media that everyone has, but I don't feel the need to share my life like I used to, which is actually nice. I enjoy that, and I guess I'm lucky in our situation that I don't have to as much. I'm sure you'd probably love to just not have to worry about it for a week or whatever, but
one day.
It's interesting. I mean, we've had times where, I don't know, you feel like everyone's watching you through your front window of your house.
Yeah.
It's a bit like it's too much sometimes, and people get nosy. But I don't know. I think as time goes on, with how many people are on social media, people are understanding boundaries to some extent.
Yeah.
I think it's not as invasive as it used to be. I even feel like people who see us in the street and whatnot, who want to say hello or whatever, it's a lot more polite than what it used to be. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
That
People
whole,
are more
like,
conscious of it, I think.
Celebrity thing, who used to run up and go get a photo and just throw a front, camera in your face and all that. I think it's not like that anymore.
Yeah, I think that people used to expect a lot more, like they'd get like angry if you didn't do like a house tour or like, just little things like that. Whereas I think people are a little bit more conscious
They're respecting
now.
your boundaries a lot more than what it used to be, I think so.
But it is like, I also think that because you're such a emotionally open person with all your friends and families, and like he's not someone who hides his feelings, you talk about everything, you'll cry in front of someone, like you're very open in that way. It's almost like you get enough of that with your close friends and family, people you trust, as in honest feedback or talking to people and venting your things, that you don't necessarily feel the need to do that on social media, which is fine.
Which is a cool place to be as well, as you said, Josh. Like, you don't necessarily go straight to, I should post this or should put a story up or anything. You've kind of got that separation, which is probably a nice place to be. Yeah. I'm curious because there are always the trolls, right? And I feel like the more successful you get, the more trolls you get, right? It's just the keyboard warriors who always have something to say about someone. How do you guys deal with the trolls? Is it as simple as like just, delete and block, or what are you guys doing with that these days?
Yeah, that's my delete and block is definitely the best advice that I could possibly give. However, when you get caught on a bad day where you might be feeling insecure or unsure about something already, and then someone hits a nerve, it can be really hard not to. If it's about things that I don't necessarily value or care much about, then I don't think twice about it. But for example, if someone was to message me something about my method of being a mother, or and they come across in a way that's, I almost feel like I could say something and educate them at this moment. Sometimes I'm like, I really want to put the effort in. However, I've noticed that 80% of the time, people are pretty stuck with their opinion, and even when you do try and get them to see another view, they'll push back again, and then it's just not worth your time. And so I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm accepting that everybody's really different. Everyone likes different things, thinks different things, and you can't please everyone. And so I try and block and ignore them as much as possible. I feel like whenever I come to you with something, you're like, what the hell? Who cares?
Yeah, I'm very... it takes a lot to... particularly random people who want to say things that they don't know. I don't ever buy into it. And to be honest, I don't read comments anyway, because what's the point? I get notified if people who my friends comment to me or whatever, but I don't scroll through my comments because...
You're pretty good on DMs though. I remember for a while I was like, wow, you're writing back to...
I literally write back to almost anyone. Anyone asks me a question, no matter what, I'll generally reply. I mean, give or take, but I do my best to not, dismiss someone or be rude or whatever, but I don't engage in any form of crap like that, because what's the point? People are talking with no idea of what they're talking about, and in particular, just stupid jealous comments and stuff like that. I just don't have time for it, so ignore.
Yeah, I was just curious. Yeah. And even from your side, Josh, curious as well. I mean, both of you are very good looking people. Okay, Josh, you're both done very well for yourselves, let me tell you. And I'm sure, and the reason why I'm saying that as well is that obviously Steph would get a lot of, attention from the general public. She's beautiful. You similarly, Josh, are a good looking guy. I'm sure you get attention from girls. Yeah. So how do you both does that happen? And when that does happen, do you just have a giggle about it, or I'm just curious, what's it like in your relationship when that comes up?
I'm not a jealous type, so I've never I mean, back in the day, probably more so when Steph was like a swimwear model. Everywhere I looked, there was a photo of Steph in bikini, and I mean, particularly back then, that's when the comments were very male heavy,
right?
All about her appearance and her butt and all this stuff. It never really bothered me. I mean, I'm not a jealous type. And also, too, like I said, I don't read into that stuff and engage in it. So it's not something... I mean, if someone was to say something in person to us that was like that, I would definitely be different. However, social media, I've never had a thing in all our time where it's like bothered me.
Yeah, no, the only time, so when we first started dating, we were probably dating for about a year. And as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, we met when I was 12 and we started dating when I was 18. And around the age of like 19, 20, I went to the States and Josh went traveling. So we were away from each other for quite a long time. I was living overseas for almost like 10 months. And for 5 solid months in a row, we didn't see each other at all, but we did long distance. And the other months we kind of like, he might come for the weekend because he was in a country nearby or whatever. And there was a period there where I was a little bit jealous, and I think it was just because like you met some girls and then they like joined your trip and then they were doing some of the stops with you and stuff like that, and I was a bit like, well, I wish I could just come and do the trip with you. Like, what
I love that.
So like I think like it's like with any relationship, I think jealousy can rear its head. However, I think we've been so solid for so many years now. And again, I just felt like from the moment I met him, he was going to be someone really important in my life.
I actually remember one jealous moment.
Oh, you did?
You spoke of it last week when Leonardo tried to pick her up in
Who did?
Leonardo.
DiCaprio.
So I was
Oh my
that leveled me pretty
gosh.
quickly. I was like, I'm not sure how I feel about this.
I remember when I told you, you were like, remember that conversation we had about hall passes? You're not allowed any.
Yeah, you don't get any anymore. This is now something you can achieve.
Oh my God. So wait, where were you when Leonardo DiCaprio tried to pick you up?
I was in LA and I was 19 years old, and
my God.
it was
Wow.
yeah, but it's,
That's a pretty proud moment.
Also for me too, weirdly.
Yeah.
No, my favorite was when I was living in New York the next year. I met Adrian Grenier. I don't even know if I'm saying his name right, but he was on Entourage, the actor.
Yeah.
And Josh was obsessed with Entourage, and Adrian was trying to pick me up, and I said no, but then I was like, but my boyfriend's obsessed with Entourage, can I get a photo? And he was like, okay.
Again, like a proud moment for both of you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's natural and it comes up, but I think the only times it's kind of reared its head is when there's something off balance a little bit in our relationship already, and then you just know that it's not actually coming from we trust each other so much. It's not coming from a trust thing. It's like coming from something else, like we might have not got the attention that we are used to or something. And
and it triggered like some little bullshit trigger thing, but it's no, it's interesting. I wrap up every conversation with this question, so I'll ask each of you, how has parenthood changed you as a person?
do you want me to go? Okay. I think that it's changed me for the better. I think it's made me a more conscious and empathetic person. I think because I feel like I've always had those traits, but I think because you have a little human sponge, particularly once they become a toddler, I've become so conscious of the way I talk, the way I act in front of him, just the way I am. I want to be a good role model for him. And it's made me really think about things in a different light and appreciate little things. This is such a random example, but I'll be walking down the street and I'll be like, oh, it's a red fire truck. Like, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I never would have, without hubby even. Like,
I do that
too. Be there. So it's just made me like, slow down, appreciate the world, look at people differently, understand everyone comes from a different place, be a lot more open-minded, and like all these things that I want him to be as a human, I think I'm trying to reflect and be myself. So I think he's just changed me for the better in so many ways.
Love that.
For me, it's slowed me down. I was very like I've got to be doing things constantly. And I still am a lot like that. However, I'm just a lot more like process driven now, and I don't know, I've always been affectionate and nurturing and whatnot, but I don't know, I absolutely love my role and what I do with Harvey. I'm very lucky to do it, and I think now that he's older, and like I was saying earlier, getting back what you put in to is the most rewarding part of all of it. So I don't know if it's changed me. Probably the main thing I would say is patience. I think, if I was to, because I'm also very like solution driven. Like I need to, if there's a problem, I need to fix it. Like whether it's like a physical
and
thing I need to fix, or
fix it.
I've always been someone that comes to me with problems to work through it. But yeah, I think it's patience.
Yeah, like even today, he cracked it because he didn't want to eat his lunch, and Josh literally had to stand up, walk out of the room, and like it almost sounded like he screamed into a pillow. And then like 30 seconds later, he returned back to the high chair and like kept going. But it's they test your patience, and you can't always fix things for them.
Yeah,
you
correct.
can't fix
well, that's
right.
Literally what happened. I walked away and I was like, have a breath and start again.
Yes,
Where if that was me 2 years ago when I was doing what I was doing, I would have flipped the plate and
Nah.
slammed the door and got in the
Go to
car.
sleep without lunch.
I would have left.
It's so true. Oh no, I love those answers. I know that you are both very busy people, so we will leave it there. But thank you so much again for being so honest and real, guys. We really appreciate it, and thanks for joining us.
No
Thank
worries.
you
Thanks
so
for having
much.
us.
Amazing.